First tonight, some homeowners in Farmington concerned about change in their neighborhood. Many want to stop it. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Leah McLean.
And I'm Kevin Dorn. Lindsay is off.
So developers want to convert a golf course into a data center on the city's east side between 220th and 225th Streets West. Plans are in the early stage here, but in general, data centers are the physical buildings full of computing equipment to store digital data.
Renee Cooper talked with homeowners today, and she joins us live now from Farmington with more. Renee?
Yeah, I'm here just ahead of a city council meeting tonight. Now, we are anticipating some public comment related to the project, but it's not up for a vote in front of the full city council just yet. Now, the city's planning commission recently voted in favor of rezoning a golf course and some residential land to make it all happen. But several residents tell me they feel like the city is steamrolling ahead without regard for their concerns.
What is this fight about? The city of Farmington is rushing forward to rezone land to accommodate a hyperscale data center. Two pieces of land include Fountain Valley Golf Course and land owned by ISD 192. The land is currently zoned residential, agricultural, park, open space, and B1 highway business. The land sits between two long-standing residential neighborhoods. The city's plan is to change this zoning to industrial, or mixed-use commercial industrial, to give the developer access to the land. Tract, the developer, plans to build a 12-building technology campus for a total of 2.53 million square feet of enormous industrial building space. Tract Management Company is the developer for the end user, who they claim is still unknown. The predatory tactics being used by Tract are what developers are using across the country. It is a very common pattern. Word is leaked out in the community of an unnamed developer planning to purchase large acres of land for a data center. The cities the developers target often agree to sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, limiting transparency to their residents and helping keep details quiet. The developer moves fast, requesting zoning changes and approval from the affected communities. The incentives are kept from the public through the NDAs. Speed is the goal, pushing aggressively before the citizens can fully organize or understand the impact of the approval. The developer claims to have no knowledge of the intended end user. Environmental impacts and especially zoning incompatibilities are not fully addressed unless the local community protests vigorously. Even then, the zoning concerns and environmental issues raised by the citizens are most often dismissed. Local governments, captivated by the promised tax base and jobs, approve the development with many of the future details regarding the project still unknown. The Master Comprehensive Plan for the city has no mention of these zoning changes. The city wants to change that. April 21, 2024. A concerned citizen became aware of the city's plans to rezone and alerted neighborhood residents with flyers. She organized an informational meeting at a local park. This was the way most residents learned of the project. By May 14, 2024, less than 1 month later, the Planning Commission was ready to vote on the rezoning. No good neighbor meetings had been held by Tract or by the city to inform residents of the plan to rezone land for this hyperscale data center. The meeting was standing room only. 24 residents spoke out about their concerns, the incompatibility of the zoning, environmental issues, and the illegality of spot zoning. Citizens asked the board to put the decision on hold until more could be learned about the project. The board was questioned about the lack of proper notice for the residents.
I would just like to have an idea of what's next. You know, I was one of very few people that actually got the letter because our property butts up to the golf course. So what happens next? You just mentioned that you'll come back, obviously not tonight, and you'll kind of give your summary of your opinions. When does that happen? How do we know it's going to happen? And how will the notices go out? Just a few of us get a letter again, or is there going to be other notices?
On a continuation, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but do you send out notices on continuations?
If it's continued, typically not, but we certainly could.
Okay, I will ask staff to send out notices again. And you know what? I think your chain of communication is relatively good. I mentioned earlier, you know, we've had full audiences before. Not always the same neighborhood, But so we'll work on sending, if this continued, we'll work on sending out re-notification. And from there, hopefully, neighbor can talk to neighbor, like it sounds like you're doing a great job of doing that already. Is that reasonable?
Can Tony just explain the process of giving out notices? Because I know it's been a question asked and
Yeah,
some people
distance and things
haven't
like
gotten
that.
notices. Just
Thanks.
distance and stuff like that, just so they're aware.
Absolutely. Per code, we're required to, for any rezoning or comprehensive plan amendment, or for that fact, a conditional use permit, we're required to send out to every property owner who's within 350 feet of the property. That's what we're required to do.
I didn't hear that. What did you say?
Every property owner within 350 feet of the property gets a notice per code.
In Castle Rose or just Farmington?
It's both. It's both.
We've never gotten a notice for any.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
The resident states, "We've never gotten a notice for anything."
That is new, and it's even new for the planning commission. So, and some people mentioned that it's come relatively quick. It's come relatively quick for us too.
Non-disclosure agreements were signed between Tract and the City of Farmington. The date that these non-disclosure agreements were signed is still to be discovered. What is spot zoning? Spot zoning is when a specific property is zoned differently from the surrounding properties, and when it is inconsistent with the existing zoning for the rest of the neighborhood or area. It typically affects a single property. The affected area receives a zoning classification that is significantly different from the surrounding properties, and spot zoning is usually seen as a way to give preferential treatment to a particular landowner or entity, allowing uses that would otherwise be prohibited in that area. Tract's push to rezone is a classic case of spot zoning. June 4th, 2024. The Planning Commission and City Council held a joint work session. Kristen Dean, Tract's Director of Entitlements, and several other Tract representatives discussed their project. This was the first time residents had a chance to get to hear from the developer. When the presentation was completed, the board members praised the representatives for their information. The board found little to criticize.
Comfortable with this. I am not concerned on a data center with electricity use. I worked for utility for 40 years. I understand that. I'm not concerned with the noise. Yeah, there's going to be backup generators. I've been around them. That won't be an issue for you. Traffic, I think, is going to be, if this does go through, the traffic of a large development, you'd see a whole lot more traffic. The roads would have to be modified somewhat accordingly. And I'm not even concerned about the appearance of the building. I think that whoever is going to build is going to, if they do go this far, will have an attractive building.
Remember, Tract's plan is to build 12 buildings, twice the size of a Costco warehouse, up to 80 feet tall. There were a couple good questions from a council member.
It's really easy for us to not pay attention to these words, but as a resident, I feel like they would be one of the first ones that I would maybe get stuck on, and it has to do with proper planning. And at the end it says, we're best located away from residential centers. And we know that we've got residents that are very close to this area. And so with that in mind, I guess I would like, for me it's page 7, so I'm not sure where that.
Okay, yep, I know where we're trying to get to, right here.
Right after leadership, actually.
Oh, one more. This
That
one.
one, there we go,
Okay.
number 1. So it says with master plan growth, and then it ends with away from residential centers. And rather than skirting that, I know that this is going to be something that residents look at and say, but this isn't away from residential centers. And so you've talked about why this site is an important site and its proximity to the things that it needs to be. But along the lines of your good neighbor commitment, how do you pair those two realities that we're close to residential centers here? We've got 2 pockets of residential, and we also have open land. Can you speak a little bit more to that, or can you explain how those two things coexist?
Yes. There is residential adjacent to the property. We recognize that. When we say away from residential centers, That statement is really more leaning towards denser residential population.
By Tract's own admission, these data centers should not be built by residential neighborhoods. How many residents can be sacrificed for a project like this? The definition of dense is clearly determined by the city.
What or where are reasonable data centers that are near to us that we can visit that would actually be an example of a finished and working design that would be similar to what you might project this looking like? Is it as simple as heading up to Rosemount, or is it something a little bit further away where we have the ability, if we are so inclined, to go and actually see one of these?
I'm gonna let Kevin answer. Okay.
It's gonna be a little bit of a non-answer, but hi everybody, Kevin Arrow, VP of Land Development. To answer your question, I think it's a great one. There is not a hyperscale data center in the state of Minnesota that we're aware of now. Rosemont is planned to be. It's under construction currently, or maybe starting construction currently. So that would probably not be a great example. But I think if you let us get back to you, I think there are some what we call wholesale data centers available that are of the same scale that would give you a good sense of what we're trying to plan for.
I'd appreciate that.
So yeah, more to come. How about that?
All right, thank you.
August 20th, 2024. On August 20th, Tract sponsored a community meeting for concerned citizens. At the start of the meeting, Kristen Dean stated no recording of any kind would be allowed by any of the residents. The meeting was another PowerPoint presentation with a Q&A session that followed. The information was similar to the joint council meeting. When pressed on noise, she did confirm there will be noise generated from the data center. September 10th, 2024. A public hearing by the Planning Commission with the rezoning vote to follow. Standing room only. Before the public spoke, the city had Jacob Steen, a Tract representative, present. Then, 18 residents shared their concerns, their research, and frustration.
Gary Ristel, 941 A Street, former mayor and former council person. What I want to leave you in your minds, and I haven't heard you speak yet tonight about any of it. What is the land? Is it a good use? Does it fit in your comp plan? You're changing your comp plan. You're changing your zoning. You're rezoning it from residential, which is already. How many more times is this going to happen?
The city then allowed the Tract representative to speak for an additional 22 minutes. He used the time to downplay citizens' concerns and explain why their issues held little merit. Within a few minutes of the closing of the public hearing portion, the board unanimously voted yes to advise the council to go forward with the rezone.
I'll start with Commissioner Winchell.
I say we move forward.
Does that mean a vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Leto.
Vote tonight.
Commissioner Snowbeck.
Vote tonight.
Commissioner Teske.
Vote tonight.
So the commission will be voting on this evening.
October 8th, 2024. One more public hearing with the Planning Commission. This time, the board votes to advise to approve the amending of the city's comp plan for the rezoning. This time, the public hearing portion was for show.
I hate to bring you back for the third time like this, but this is something that was on our agenda. We have to address it. But I would support this comp plan amendment, as I've told and talked with the city council over the last year and a half.
They've been working on this for a year and a half?
Over the last year and a half. This is not something that's brand new to us. So I would also support that. And with that, I'd look for a motion to close the public hearing. I'm sorry, what was that?
Can I ask a quick question before you vote?
I didn't hear.
Question, sure.
Yes, you certainly may. Can you come up to the podium, please?
Okay, I'm not trying to be snide or anything.
No.
I really don't understand what's the purpose of this public hearing if you already knew what you're gonna decide.
This is part of the process. If you're gonna rezone something, you're gonna need to change a comp plan also. Again, I mentioned to staff, this could have been done at our last meeting, and maybe should have been done at our last meeting, then it would have been packaged together. So that's why we're taking care of this. This is a requirement. This is part of the process. Thank you. With that, I look for a motion to close the public hearing.
What about about a conflict of interest the city won't talk about. In 2017, an article was published discussing the possibility of data centers coming to Farmington. In the article, Mark Loftus, the Economic Development Director of Dakota Electric, stated, "Our goal is to sell electricity, and if we can sell of a certain type, especially with projects like these large data centers. Data centers require a consistent load of electricity and energy from utility companies that can offer attractive incentives and ways to pay for the whole system," Loftus said. Dakota Electric clearly has a lot to gain from this project. Roddy, the head of the Planning Commission, worked for 40 years for Dakota Electric and served as VP of Operations. He retired in 2018. Many residents believe this is a significant conflict of interest with Roddy running the board. His involvement in these decisions should be addressed. Where are we at? We are awaiting copies of the NDAs from the city to show us the dates Farmington signed these quiet agreements with Tract. This will show us how long the city has known about this project, as they claimed this process has been fast for them too. We know the city gave its residents very little time. Remember, the residents learned about the project less than 1 month before the Planning Commission was slated to vote on the rezoning May 14th. With the majority of the residents learning about it by word of mouth, and with the help of the one citizen with her handful of flyers, we had less than 1 month to spread the news. Less than 1 month to research, to find out what was happening, and then beg the Commission to hold the vote on May 14th. Farmington citizens get less than 1 month? How long had the city known? We will soon find out. At the time of this video, the council is scheduled to vote on the rezoning and changing the comp plan on November 4th. Castle Rock Township originally annexed the land of Farmington, and they have strongly opposed the rezoning efforts. Castle Rock has responded to Farmington's impending application to the Met Council with a letter urging them to deny the application. The original annexation agreement explicitly prohibits Farmington from changing the comp plan to commercial or industrial zoning without the consent of the township. Despite providing a petition of over 300 signatures, despite the studies, the articles, the research that citizens have sent to the city officials, they seem intent on going forward. Despite the massive amounts of water, the electricity, the tonal noise issues, the environmental concerns, and dropping these issues right between our homes with a 12-building hyperscale data center has not deterred our city. It is clear that legislation is needed in Minnesota to protect Minnesota residents from these kinds of predatory developers. The cities cannot be trusted to do the job. Residents like those in Farmington need protection.
More.
I'm practically neighboring where they are proposing to put 5 buildings, Costco-sized buildings. So those buildings going to be right there in my view from every morning I wake up.
Our group is not opposed to data centers per se. We're opposed to this location.
That was the message to city leaders last week as residents spoke for more than an hour against plans for the center and rezoning the land.
If they're going to put up 40-foot towers with Klieg lights on, they're going to shine into my bedroom. I'm not going to be happy with that.
Even so, the City Planning Commission ultimately voted in favor of the development.
In Tract's own presentation, they said the first tenet of being a good neighbor, and they promised to be a good neighbor, is not to put this in a residential area, and that is exactly what the city is allowing them to do.
Please do not feel sorry for a company with billions of dollars for a project. Please feel sorry and please be concerned for the residents who elected you.